This is the Shoulda Bet More podcast, presented by Gold Boys Network. Here's your host, Will Hill.
Welcome to the Shoulda Bet More podcast, presented by Gold Boys. Coming up on the show, the Bear, Chris Fallica from Fox Sports, will join us. We'll talk some NFL, talk some college football. It's a big weekend for both, especially some good college games. You get down the stretch here, last month or so of the season, you can start to have these conference title games in sight, playoff discussion. So exciting time for college football and NFL. You know, we turn the calendar here to November. The playoff picture becomes a little bit clearer. So I'll get to the playoffs here in a minute. I was thinking about the other day doing an election podcast, but just through the lens of betting. But people lose their minds when it comes to election, and people have their camps, and they're just so tribal when it comes to it that people, I don't want to deal with the blowback either way. Whatever a guest says, whatever I say, people, get mad if you're on the other side. I will say this: should have thought of this sooner. If somehow we could have all agreed to vote Aaron Boone into office for president, that would mean he could no longer manage the Yankees, and that would probably be a good thing for everybody. So wish I had thought of that earlier, voted Aaron Boone into office, but I don't think that's going to happen. But we'll start with the NFL here, and the playoff picture, like I mentioned, gets a little bit clearer as we head to November, especially in the AFC. Now, the NFC, Tampa lost a terrible game Monday night. Not a terrible game because you expected to lose to Kansas City, but they had a chance to steal it. Bowles completely botched it. Instead of, letting the clock run, getting the touchdown and going for two, he calls timeout, saves Mahomes time, goes into overtime. And once you go in overtime, you kind of know how that's going to go. But the NFC is just more convoluted than the AFC. And it's set up here as we have a good Thursday night game, Ravens, Bengals. Bengals are a 6-point underdog. So Ravens -6, total of 53. That's got to be the highest total we've seen all year. Initially, before I saw the line, I'm thinking, oh, this is an over game. Last time they played a month or so ago, both teams scored a ton of points. But, man, 53 is really high for a total, especially, second matchup in a month, 6 weeks or so. That, to me, lends itself more to an under. The more you see Lamar, he's a unique player, the more likely you are to stop him. So Thursday night game, it's enough at least to keep me off it. But I think the theme going into this game is the AFC is much clearer in terms of your playoff teams than the NFC, because I think we know 6 of the 7 playoff teams right now. Chiefs, Ravens, and boy, we anything can happen, but it does seem like we are on a collision course for a Chiefs-Ravens AFC title game rematch. But let's just say Chiefs, Ravens, Texans, probably going to win the division here, even though they haven't looked great. And the Bills, then the wild cards, if nothing else, Chargers have probably banked enough wins to get in. And the Steelers, although they have a tough schedule going forward, have probably banked enough wins, and they're solid enough where they can, hey, just play 500 the rest of the way and they'll get in. So Chargers, Steelers, Chiefs, Ravens, Bills, Texans. That's 6 of the 7. The 7th team, I don't know. Choose your fighter. The Bengals, the Broncos, the Colts. Could you make a case for the Jets? Now, just going through the odds here for these teams, Bengals around even money to make it. Broncos are like plus 175. Now, they have the Chiefs this week, so maybe you think, hey, they lose this week. Maybe you wait a week or wait another week, and then you play them. Colts plus 185. They're sitting at 4-5. The Jets are plus 300. Boy, I've just been wrong so much on the Jets. I see the talent. I know the schedule's not that bad. Arizona and Indy, Seattle. They get they're done with New England, actually. They get Miami, but Miami's got Tua back, and Miami's actually played pretty well. Miami might be better than all these teams. It's just they lost a couple close games, and they didn't have Tua for a while. And if they did, boy, they're as good. They're probably better. I think they are better than these other teams in the mix here. So who gets that 7 spot? Bengals, Broncos, Jets, Colts. Does somebody else come up and steal it? I mean, I guess it's conceivable, and this doesn't usually happen with a wild card. But the idea that the 7th seed could be under 500, because if you look, like, since he's the favorite to get the 7th seed, small favorite, if they lose like they're supposed to on Thursday night, you're looking at they're 4-6, and they're not dead at 4-6. So something to keep an eye on. The NFC is much more complicated because, boy, you can really there's only a couple teams you can eliminate. You can eliminate the Giants, you can eliminate the Saints, you can eliminate the Panthers. And I think with Dak now out at least a month, he's on injured reserve. Who knows if you'll see him the rest of the year. I think you can count Dallas out. So Dallas, the Giants, the Saints, the Panthers. Other than that, let's just go through the teams. We'll put the Lions in. I think we'll put the Vikings in. We'll put the Falcons in. They're going to win that division. That's 3. Let's just give, for the sake of argument, the 49ers the West. That's 4. Now who gets the rest of these spots? Philly and then Washington, then you're up to 6. If you think those are the 6 teams, man, that 7th spot is wide open. If we're giving San Fran the division, I don't know, Arizona, Seattle, probably not, but the Rams, you can't really count out any of those three teams. And Arizona's updated win total is 9.5. So Arizona has got as good a shot as anybody. Like I said, the NFC East you can rule out, and then you throw in the Packers who are 6-3. I would throw the Bears out, but the Bears are 4-4, and they're a home, 6.5, 7 point favorite against New England this week. So they're got a chance to be 5-4. You can't count out a 5-4 team. Can you count out Tampa at 4-5? Probably not, although they're behind the eight ball. So the bottom line, the AFC is much clearer than the NFC. When you think six teams, and it's just three or four teams for the final spot, and then sorting out seeding in divisions. Although Bills are probably going to win the East, Texans are going to win the South, Chiefs are going to win the West, and then it comes down to I still think the Ravens are going to win the North. I mean, it's just the AFC is much clearer. While the NFC, man, you can really only eliminate a handful of teams. So interesting, really interesting stuff. As I mentioned the other day, Gannon is 20-1 to coach of the year, the Cardinals coach, because if you think Arizona can win the division and maybe Philly wins the division and Washington doesn't, I don't know. Does Harbaugh get it? Andy Reid is another guy who's like under the radar here for coach of the year just because, hey, they're undefeated. If they go like 15-2, maybe he gets sort of a lifetime achievement award. So I don't know. Interesting. As far as this Thursday night game, boy, Baltimore is just such a machine. They're so good at home in these big games. I would lean towards taking the points. I am terrified to fade this Baltimore team. Baltimore does, since he does play well against Baltimore, Burrow plays well against Baltimore. They should have beaten them last time. They're up 10 in the fourth quarter. I would lean towards taking the points. You figure, hey, if they're down 10 late, maybe they get a backdoor. But man, Baltimore is just a buzzsaw on offense. That was a good Denver defense that they just obliterated on Sunday. So interesting. We hit the stretch here. Like I said, college football, we got the first college football rankings coming out. They came out on Tuesday. We got big games this weekend. We got conference title games in sight, playoff discussions, NFL, the playoff picture gets clearer. So we turn the page. College basketball is here. We'll start to do a little, NBA here and there, baseball off season as we, different time of the year. It gets a little darker later. Summer is certainly over. The fall is winding down, although it is, it has been warm here, especially on the East Coast, 75, 80 degrees here. And early November is not something you're used to, but it's football season. We will talk football with Chris Fallica. We'll get his thoughts, college football, the slate, NFL awards, all of that and more. That is next. This Should Have Been More podcast. All right, we are back. Should Have Been More podcast. You can catch him Fox Big Noon Kickoff, Bear Bets podcast. It is the great Chris Fallica, the Bear. He joins us, Bear. We'll get to some football. We got a lot of NFL, a lot of college, but I have to ask, are you over the Yankees lost that fifth inning? I am still annoyed by it a week later. Are you over it yet?
No, I'm not. I was sitting there on Friday night, just with Matt Liner and a bunch of people from Fox Big Noon are all LA and Dodgers fans and just in dismay that we really should have been watching a game 6 that night, most likely with the Yankees leading 3-2 in the series. And it would have been a pucker time for those guys. But yeah, Yanks got no one to blame but themselves. You decide to walk Betts and you pitch to Freeman and give up a grand slam in the ninth in the first game. And then the little league debacle of errors in the fifth inning on. I mean, the amazing thing is that they really should have been at it with no runs, despite everything. And just it sucks because I mean, I never believed that they were really a great team. And you were, I'm going to give you a ton of credit. Like you were all over this early on in the playoffs about how these three AL Central teams making the playoffs basically pumped up on records because they dominated the worst team in the history of baseball. So really should have been a little bit heavier on the Yankees, maybe making the World Series than what I was. But once you're there, it's like, okay, you're involved and you're in it and you want to see them win.
Yeah, and I was thinking about this. I'm curious what you think. Where does that rank Game 5 worst Yankee losses, at least of your lifetime, of our lifetime? I can't put it ahead of Arizona because that was 3 outs away from a 4-peat.
No.
But man, it's just there's a different nature. There's a different feel of it when you give it away in such frivolous fashion where you're just dropping pop-ups and not covering first and you're left to wonder. Now I think they would have lost Game 6, but with Ohtani going the way he was going, Judge the way going, due for a hot streak and starting to heat up, I don't know that they would have lost Game 6. And there's part of me that's like, man, if they just, and it's torture to think about it, if they had just caught the ball, they might have actually won the World Series.
Yeah, and that's something that we've talked about all the time about Judge, is how he's a great defensive center fielder. He doesn't get nearly the amount of credit that he deserves for his defensive acumen, and just kind of take your eye off it and look at the the runner going towards
Who
first.
cares about the runner? What are you worried
Exactly. Who
about
gives a
the
shit?
runner for? You have
Nothing.
5 runs. He's not
Nothing.
tagging up. Who cares? That was oh
Now we're getting really, really worked up again, which
yes.
now it's hurting all over again.
It's therapeutic though. All right, we'll move on to football.
It is.
I guess I'll start with this. We'll start NFL. If the Chiefs and Lions played right now, who would you? What would the line be, and who would you pick?
I'd probably take the Lions. Would it be a pick?
Yeah, I had Kev O'Neill on a couple days ago. He thinks like
KC
Lions should
won
be favored by a point, but he thinks if like he were the book, he would just make it a pick and let the books decide.
because
Let the bettors
if you
decide.
make the Lions favored by one, everyone's going to take Mahomes as a dog. You
Right.
know that's what's going to happen.
Exactly. So you'd pick the Lions. So you think pick them and you take the Lions?
I will say this: I am probably the wrong person to ask because I have so many cross-board parlays tied up to Super Bowl teams, and I do not have the Lions
Oh,
as one of those teams. And I mean, I did these things back in July when I was out there, and I wasn't necessarily sold on the Lions then, but I have been buying a lot of Lions 10-1, 8-1, and now I see their second choice down to like 550 or 6-1 or so. But yeah, they're I tell you what, they are fun to watch. They are easy to like, and
I agree.
I think they certainly would give um, Kansas City some problems.
And the one positive, if you're gonna say, hey, you're worried about the Lions winning, you're against the Lions, like you don't want to be that team in November. Like the Vikings were that team a couple weeks ago. This
Hmm.
thing is so cyclical, or it's
Yep.
almost like they're peaking a little too early. But that being said,
Right.
I know they don't have Hutchinson, but man, there's not a lot of weaknesses. They can run the ball. They've got offensive line. They've got weapons. A quarterback who I think we all look at kind of differently now. Where man, he's just he's not an elite quarterback, but he's a solid B plus A minus quarterback, especially with what he has around him. It's just a coach that's aggressive. They've got a lot of elements that you like.
Yeah, and Branch gets thrown out of the game yesterday, and their defense still played great.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the elements of the weather was shit, but yeah, they're going to be interesting. I will say this about the NFC, and you were talking about like maybe peaking too soon or whatever. Is it like two bets that you made that you brought up one, and I'll bring up another? Is it worth a play on the Niners to win the Super Bowl or win the NFC right now? A little bit of an inflated price, just because I guess we're kind of assuming that they're going to win the West. But they're 11-1, 12-1 to win the Super Bowl. You can get a good number on them to win the NFC. We're assuming McCaffrey is going to come back. Like, is that worth the play for you with those numbers?
I mean, if you told me, hey, I bet the Niners at 12-1 to win it all, I could not possibly argue with you. There is part of me, it's like, man, are they just on fumes? They've been in so many Super Bowls,
Could be.
NFC title games, all these injuries. It just feels like one of these years where it doesn't fire for them. That
Mhm.
being said, once they get in, they're going to be the old cliche of nobody wants to play them. You got Purdy and McCaffrey, and you still have Debo, but I don't know. Have you made that bet?
No, I have not. The one bet that I did make was though last week when we were talking about in the group text about were the Cardinals worth making a division bet to win the NFC West, and you actually said I would probably just play Gannon to win Coach of the Year, and I did make that bet, and you can still get him around 15-1 or so.
20-1 at FanDuel.
That's crazy because you look at the schedule and it's very, very manageable. They've got tie breaks. And again, I don't know if Dan Quinn, I mean, the Commanders, obviously, the way their schedule breaks, I think is pretty easy the rest of the way as well.
What if Philly wins the division? What if Philly wins the division?
Right.
Like say
That's the thing.
Washington doesn't win the division, Arizona does.
Right.
You're
Then
gonna
that
they were both
swings it.
lined at like 6.5 wins before the season. There's gonna be a case here for
And Kevin
starting to worry about
O'Connell
Andy Reid too, by the
and the
way.
Vikings don't win the division. What happens then?
That's a great point. I'm starting to worry about Andy Reid. Like, man, if they just go 15-2, will he just get sort of a lifetime achievement? And I remember, I forget what show I was on during the summer where he was the longest shot on the board. I was like, man, it's probably not worth a bad bet. Like, just in
No.
case the Chiefs have one of these years where they go 15-2 or 16
And
and
they
one or
very
something,
easily
then he
could.
just wins it that way. But I do think Gannon at 20-1 is still worth the bet.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you there. Just looking at some other NFL stuff that I wrote down. And this is something actually we talked about on the pod. I think we talked about it on the pod. I'm pretty sure we did last week on Bear Bets. Like, and I think we were talking about it on the group text with you and me and Gil and Todd and Fez.
The murderer's row right there.
Exactly. That you talk about a group thread you want absolutely zero part of it. That's like put the bell up with the silencer. That way you don't get the notifications that the texts are coming in. Maybe that'll end a little bit now that election season is over.
Yes.
We get election news from both sides, but Broncos to make them, because you were talking about like who's going to make the playoffs in the AFC.
Yes.
And I think you can probably wait a couple of weeks and maybe potentially play the Broncos at a really good number. You got Chiefs next week. You've got Atlanta the week after that. There's a good chance, more than likely, that they're going to be 5-6. But you look after that, it's like the Poop Town Express, to steal the line from Scott Van Pelt. Raiders, Browns, Colts, Chargers, Bengals, Chiefs in a game that the Chiefs probably are going to sit everyone. Like that's a path potentially to 9 or 10 wins in the AFC. Like I'm very curious to see what the price on the Broncos to make the playoffs will be in a couple of weeks, should they be 5-6. That's a bet I'm going to be looking at making.
Yeah, Bill Simmons calls them the good bad team. They're the bad team that's pretty good. Like they can beat all the other bad teams. So they're the bad team that's pretty good. And I think there's some truth to that. And I was going to ask you because we think we probably know 6 of the 7 AFC teams in the playoffs: Chiefs, Chargers, Steelers, Ravens, Texans, Bills. So you're talking about one spot that's wide. I mean, I think the other teams, even if we don't think the Chargers and even maybe the Steelers are that good, they banked enough wins where it's going to be hard for them not to make it. So you're talking about for that last spot, either Bengals, Broncos, dare I say the Jets?
No,
I don't know,
even
the
say it.
Colts. You're tending to lead towards the Broncos?
I'm tending to lead towards the Broncos. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think most people would probably say Bengals. And I did play the Bengals a couple of weeks ago, plus 145 or so. But yeah, I'm curious to see what the Broncos price would be in a couple of weeks. Where are you on MVP? I know you brought me on to ask me the questions, and now I'm asking you
Yeah.
questions. It feels like the Wednesday and Thursday show. But where are you on MVP right now?
I don't know that there's a great bet out there. I did write for Fox before the season when golf was, I think, 35-40 to 1. I think that's a good bet. I think you can get in trouble chasing chasing the flavor of the week. Oh, this guy dropped, his odds dropped. Now we got to bet him for FOMO. That's not the way to play it.
No.
What's Hurts? Hurts is the one guy. Like if I'm just gonna say, you know what, these guys with single digit odds, I don't think Lamar's gonna have to be so far above and beyond everybody else.
Yes.
The fact that he won it last year, he's won it
Yes.
twice, hasn't done it in the playoffs.
Yes.
Allen hasn't won it. He's the rightful favorite.
Right.
Mahomes doesn't have the stats. Goff is still has a shot, but he's only 6-1. Hurts is one that at least when you get 12-1. Is that a great bet? No, but that team could win 12 games with that offense, and you need a quarterback to win, not even double digit games, 12, 13 plus games. So that's at least one where, I mean, look at these other guys around him. Do you want any part of Derrick Henry at 20-1? No. You want Burrow at 16-1? No. Darnold's now 21. I don't think Murray can win it. Purdy's at 20-1. I don't know if they'll win enough games. Stroud down to 25-1 If you had no bets in this market right now, what would I gave you $100 free betting?
Allen, I'd bet Josh
Okay.
Allen. Like you look at
3-1.
I mean, he's clearing everything that they have lost and the narrative about them being down coming into the year. They've got San Francisco, Kansas City, and at Detroit.
Great point.
Up in the next few games. Like you look at the rest of their schedule, they've got at least 4, and maybe they'll sweep the games. Colts, Rams, Patriots twice, Jets. They're going to win 12 games.
Yeah.
You beat Kansas City or Detroit and San Francisco, you're going to win 13 or 14. He's got to be the MVP, right?
And he's never won. I think that helps too. Like, there's been this not even perception. It's been, I think it's true that he's the second best player, and it's almost like it's his turn. Like, okay, now he gets a chance to win it. And I think there is a lot of that with this voting.
I would agree with that. And then the other future bet I did make today, and I'm kind of bummed again. I don't want to say fear of missing out or whatever, but there certainly were better numbers available. I did bet Kirk Cousins comeback player of the year, minus 110, just because I don't think there's another player out there that is going to win. I mean, Burrow is second choice, but are they going to give it to him? If the Falcons win that division and Cousins stays healthy the rest of the year, he's certainly got to be a lock for that award. No,
I would think so. Who's it between him and them? I just looked at these odds a second ago.
It's Burrow.
It's Burrow and
like Hamlin's still taking money, even though we know that he's not going to win. Cousins, Rodgers got no shot.
Burrow's having an incredible statistical year.
Is
He's not going to win MVP. He's 60-1 at DraftKings for Offensive Player of the Year. Would they do that? Would they give it to him as a consolation prize?
Why not? I mean, I think most people are just assuming it's going to be it's going to be Derrick Henry or like you see like
Or
Jamar
Barkley?
Chase being like such a shorter price for Offensive Player of the
Yeah.
Year. But if Burrow is like clearly having an unbelievable year, why not?
Doesn't win enough to get MVP. It's a weird award where
Yep.
sometimes, like, there was a 5 or 6 year stretch where quarterbacks won it like 3 out of the 5 or 6 years,
Mhm.
like Cam Newton and Ryan and somebody else. I think it was Brady. Then it just became like the best non-quarterback. So it's probably still going to be, Henry or Barkley or somebody. But I just thought that was interesting at 60
Yeah,
to 1.
totally.
College. What's before we get to the games? And did you like anything NFL games? We do have a good Thursday night game, Ravens Bengals.
It is a good Thursday game this week. I did not really look at the NFL schedule yet for
All right.
this week. I'm in mourning from losing my survivor pool yesterday with the Saints, despite outgaining a team by 200 yards and having 150 rushing yards, not turning the ball over. Thank you, Dennis Allen, for punting on 4th and inches from your
Oof.
own 46 in the fourth quarter, up 5. That's why you're a loser with loser mentality, and that's why you just got fired today. So little consolation for me and John Murray and Kelly in Vegas as well, who lost survivor entries because of the Saints. But you know what's funny, and I've noticed this about just former players and a mentality of like a lot of these coaches is they are so conservative when it comes to like punting and taking the points. I
They've been
mean,
brainwashed for so long with
it's
this rhetoric.
like
And
a
there's such a
couple.
macho thing with football too. Like, you got to be tough. And these guys, it's not fit. I mean, that's a violent sport. You're putting your life on the line. There's so
Yes,
much, macho mentality out there. Then you go out and it's fourth in like a pinky nail and you
and
punt
you
the
got
ball away.
Taysom
Like,
Hill.
I
Like
know,
just run Taysom
I know,
Hill. He's going to get it,
I know.
and
It's
you
crazy.
probably run out the clock and win on the worst. It's the worst roster in the league.
Yeah, they talk so much about toughness and being tough and fearless, and then they act that way. It drives me crazy.
Exactly.
It's a weird dynamic. It really is.
So even a couple of weeks back, we were in Bloomington for Big Noon, and I think the score at the time was it might have been 28-7, Indiana over Nebraska. I think it was 28-7. And Nebraska had the ball and they were driving. It was like 4th and goal from like the 7 or something like that. And Nebraska hadn't stopped Indiana like the entire quarter. And there was no way they were going to stop them. Like, it's clear you need a touchdown. Making it 28-10 does absolutely nothing for you because you still were needing 3 scores. And I'm like, oh, go for it. Absolutely. And like Liner and Brady are like, oh no, take the points. And you
Momentum.
just need some points. And I'm like, 3 points doesn't do anything for you. 28-10. Who cares? They're just going to go right down the field and score. And then, of course, they throw the interception. And then, like, see, that's why you take the points. And then, what the hell was the final score? 55-7 or whatever the hell it was.
Yeah,
It's
it got
amazing.
ugly.
It's amazing how they get so like brainwashed and conditioned into like points when it's clearly not the right move.
Yep. It is a good college slate. Before we get to some of those games,
Yeah.
what is like the biggest conundrum you're thinking about? Because you like to think about this stuff
Mhm.
that the committee could possibly be facing here in a month or so.
I think 9-3 Alabama. If Alabama were to lose this week, and you've got a 9-3 Alabama with a win over number 2 Georgia, or maybe number 1 Georgia at the end of the year, if things break right, I think that's going to be a pretty big conundrum. Like, does the Tide get in by having what would be on paper the best win of the year? But that would also mean they will have lost a game to LSU here, and they would have lost their other 2 games that they've lost already as well, one to Vandy. So I think that's probably it. I don't think a 10-2 Notre Dame would be a big conundrum at all. I think that's an easy call to be left out of the playoff at 10-2 with like, yeah, you beat A&M, but you lose to a MAC team on your home field, and then you lose to a dog shit SC team in the final game of the regular season. Like, that wouldn't be a massive conundrum, but I think it's going to be like that, maybe potentially that 9-3 Bama, or maybe a 9-3 LSU versus either a second team from the ACC or a second team from the Big 12 would probably be it.
Are you starting to, because I think you and I are on the same page of like less is more. It was better the old way, but are you starting to get excited for all these different scenarios and all the possibilities here with a month
Yeah,
left?
yeah, I am, but it's funny at the same time. We were kicking this around on with the our big noon thread that we have going. Like it's almost like a perfect year right now for a 14 playoff because the way I see it is you got Oregon number one right now, clearly undefeated. You got a great win. Georgia number two. I think you got Ohio State three and Texas four. Like the four teams that we thought were the best teams coming into the year, I still think are the four teams. And then you got a little bit of a drop off. And like, who's number five? Is it Miami, who is played with fire and defensively they're terrible? Indiana, who hasn't beaten a soul, but they've blown everybody out. Tennessee, their offense is terrible. BYU is like, I mean, ridiculous undefeated. Like there are so many teams out there that are going to get in. Like, and good. I mean, they'll have a lot to talk about. And there, I mean, the Indiana fans are giving me shit because I said that they could either be 12-0 or 11-1 without beating a team that got a single vote in the poll at the end of the year. And I'm not really singling them out because there are other teams like that. Miami just finally picked up a win over a current ranked team with Louisville. Texas, their only win against a ranked team is over Vandy. Like it's the situation that we have because of all of these power mega conferences that expanded. So that's the downside of it. You really need to take a deep dive into some schedules and some other advanced EPA metrics to kind of like one loss record doesn't always tell you the story. I think, and that's certainly never been more true than where we are right now.
Anything worth a bet right now in these conference title futures, any sort of
Yes.
futures? And how well versed are you in these conference tiebreakers?
Not nearly well enough. I really need to study up this week for the Big 12 one because I think that goes hand in hand with one of the bets that I would make here. And Colorado, I think a plus 350 to win the Big 12 is worth the bet. This will be a tough game in Lubbock this week, but if they win in Lubbock, you're looking at a terrible Utah team, an Oklahoma State team that I think is completely melded in, and they got Kansas, who has been a massive disappointment. Like if they get by this game, I think they're going to finish 10-2. And it probably means they need either an Iowa State loss, which could come against Kansas State in the final game of the regular season. And I forget who the Clones have in their other remaining games. So like there's an opportunity there. And then you've got BYU, which still has Utah this week. And then maybe there's a path for Colorado to get there if BYU were to lose one game. But I think Colorado at plus 350 is worth a bet. And the other bet that I like, and we talked about this a couple of weeks back, was Tulane to win the American, Tulane to make the college football playoff. They're minus 110 to win the AAC. They're going to be in the game. I think they're favored over Army. Should Army be the team that they wind up playing? Defensively, they're really good. They stop the run. John Summerall is an excellent defensive-minded head coach. They got a great young quarterback in Darian Mensah. Like they're a legit team. And should Boise slip, I think there's an excellent chance the Greenway find their way into the playoff. But basically, pick them. They're minus 110 to win the AAC. They'll be favored in that game, and then you can probably just take something back on the other side, take the dog or take plus the points, and probably name a profit.
Yeah, so Iowa State at Kansas this week. They're a small favorite,
Mhm.
3-point favorite. Hosting Cincinnati,
It's
at
not bad.
Utah, and then home for Kansas State. And I've read some things, and I got to catch up on these tiebreakers too. I've read some things that Colorado controls their own destiny as long as Texas Tech wins a couple games after that, because strength of schedule, strength of victory, it is not straightforward. It is very complicated.
No, and it's the same way in the ACC. And I just know this from Miami, where it's like this. I think like the Sports Source Analytics worked at conjunction, they handle a lot of the metrics for the college football playoff. I think they came up with this tiebreak formula based on a lot of other like strength of schedule metrics and power rankings, which is good. But I don't think people really know exactly what it is, and I think that it affects you as well because I know you're holding a nice SMU ticket, and that win by SMU on Saturday was used just like that Louisville win. So you're 16-1 now. With suddenly you just got to get in the game with a number like that.
Absolutely. And that was one, man. These tickets, you bet these futures, and some of them look so dumb or look so smart, or both, because week one they struggled Nevada, then they lose to BYU. Man, this team is terrible. What a
Yep.
disappointment. And you look up and they've nobody's put it. They could have lost to Duke, but they have been unblemished here in the ACC. It's really amazing.
So funny because I was like counting my money. I'm like, oh, I got UCF at plus 165 head-to-head season wins against SMU. Wow, this is golden. I'm in. Well, counting my money, and now I think UCF has won one game since.
Yeah, that was another one I wrote up for Fox during the summer. So these the Fox columns have gone well, which is always nice. Last one. Any games this week you like? Georgia, Ole Miss, Bama, LSU, the big games, or anything else?
I was surprised Georgia was less than a field goal favorite, not knowing the injury status of Henry Parrish, not knowing the injury status of Trey Harris. Like that was an extremely short number. Like would make me very concerned about laying such a short price on the road, especially being how Carson Beck has been just turning the ball over lately. Like I'd love to go back and watch the film or talk to someone who's really one of the quarterbacks on our set, or someone like David Pollock who's really dialed, or Jim Donnan who's dialed in at Georgia. Like, what the hell is going on here? Is this on Beck? Is this on his receivers? Is it just circumstance? Like, is it like if they go to Oxford this week and Carson Beck is turning the ball over like Halloween candy, like they'll get beat. But I don't have a feel on that. I lean towards LSU at home just because I do think this is not a great Alabama team. It's good that they finally got the bye, but I lean towards LSU right now at home. I did play Mississippi State plus 24 against Tennessee. This is a spot that, I mean, you look at Tennessee, they had the games that they've had previous weeks. Now they have Georgia next week in a game that they obviously really need. And if you look back with Mississippi State, they've been in this spot against Georgia, Texas A&M in previous weeks where the Aggies and Bulldogs had bigger games the following week, and they just kind of mailed it in against the Bulldogs and won comfortably, but never really threatened the number. So I did take 24 with Mississippi State, and I did lay 11 with TCU against Oklahoma State. TCU kind of I don't want to say unlucky loser, but lost a really tight game against Baylor on Saturday night late. You're laying 11 now against Oklahoma State, who is awful. Have not won a game in the Big 12. Gundy's talking weird. Like I wonder at the end of the year if Gundy just kind of walks away and is like the college football in 2024 with the portal and NIL and all this. It's not for me. So I'll be curious. I don't know if this Oklahoma State team is going to win again the rest of the year. I laid 11 with them, and I did lay 21.5 with Texas against Florida. If you think DJ Lagway is going to play, I got news for you. No way, he's not playing. That's like I have some ice to sell to the Eskimos or some waterfront property in Ireland in the middle of the Pacific for you. Like, no way. I think Texas with the idle week defensively, it's going to be very, very difficult for Florida to score. And Florida had a ton of injuries, and you've got the physicality of that game against Georgia the previous week. Now you got to play another physical team in Texas. Bad situation. So those are the three things that I put in the account already.
Yeah, and the transfer from Yale, it's it's a different set of circumstances. Yes. Playing Cornell and Princeton, then you're gonna have to you're playing Georgia, playing at Texas. Poof. That's tough, and it's tough for Napier too because that team was starting to play well. Right. And man, that's just a tough break. I wonder if that ultimately cost him his job. And yeah, Brad Powers, who I've had on the show, who's college football better. He's talked about Beck and he's like, hey, Lamborghinis and Instagram girlfriends. I don't know. Is he dating one of the Cavender twins? I don't know.
Yes, he is.
Okay, I mean that.
Yes, he is. I don't know if he's dating the one that's no longer playing at Miami or the one that's playing at Miami. I'm sure I can find that out at some point. But yeah, it might be a little.
I think either one is a distraction. I'll put it that
correct.
Way.
Exactly.
Bear, you're the best, man. Appreciate.
I got one more thing for you. I got one more thing for you if we have
sure.
time. I bet Liverpool plus 275 to win the Carabao Cup. It's like the domestic league cup. You look, they drew Southampton in the quarterfinals, and Southampton is one of the worst teams in the Premier League. Manchester City is now out. You look at who's left in that draw. Like they have an opportunity here to win it, and I think it matters. Normally, I don't get excited about these league cups, and you wonder about how much these teams are going to buy in and want to win. But with Arne Slot, the new head coach, this is his first opportunity in the first tournament he has to win silverware and kind of like say, we can, just like Jurgen Klopp did, we can win silverware here with me. A chance for him to like make a mark in his first major competition to win. Arsenal's left, but I mean they've had a lot of success against Arsenal lately. So Liverpool plus 275 to win the Carabao Cup was a bet that I had made.
All right, man. No college basketball. You're as behind as I am. I'm guessing.
I am. I had a couple of free plays that I looked at. I played a little just because I had to burn them. I played Auburn to win Auburn to win the title at like 30-1. I played Houston, I think, to win. Yeah, Houston, I played to win the title. I think that was like 20-1. And I took a massive flyer on Oregon with all their transfers coming in to win the title at like 80-1 or something. But again, that was just quick little, oh shit, I gotta burn these free plays. So let me take a chance.
Bear, appreciate it, man. Thanks for coming on. Let everyone know where they can find you.
Bear Bets Pods, Wednesday college, Thursday NFL, Friday Bruce and the Bear, columns throughout the week. We got that study hall guide during the week. We got the NFL. I didn't do an NFL column this week just because I didn't like anything. And I didn't want to put anything out there that I wasn't going to bet, but college column coming out. And then Big Noon kickoff on Saturday. So shoot me tweets. You know, I try to get back to as many people as I can, even if you do hate my opinion that Indiana could wind up beating nobody that got a vote and be 11-1. I think they'd still be in the playoff too.
All right, Bear. Appreciate the time. Thanks.
Take care, brother.
All right. Thank you to the Bear, Chris Fallica. We will be back Friday. Rate, review, subscribe. Appreciate the reviews. Keep them coming. The more we do, the more you do, the more we'll start to do giveaways and keep doing giveaways, things like that. But see you Friday. Enjoy the games. Talk to you then.